official, totally unique to this area. Rudy writes, the difficulty is there's such variety in our province. Is there one symbol that can capture this? The dry interior, the wet coast, urban versus rural. Among First Nations, there's more variety of cultures and languages in BC than all the rest of Canada. Personally, I like the variety of rocks, the sculptured rocks along the shore of the Gulf Islands, the layered rocks in the interior that you can see along the highway leading to the Okanagan, and the basalt in Queen Elizabeth Park, and so on. Thanks for your emails. You can vote online, cbc.ca/BC. It's 12:18 now. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks for being with us. Well, the cycling community is still reeling from the tragic weekend in Penticton. One cyclist has died. 2 others were injured after being hit by a car at the Okanagan Grand Fondo. That's an event that brings thousands of cyclists to the city every year. RCMP say it happened last Sunday on White Lake Road near St. Andrews Drive, a route that's part of the popular mass cycling event. The incident prompted full road closures and a police investigation. Penticton Mayor Julius Bloomfield has been hearing from devastated members of the community, and he spoke on the early edition yesterday morning.
The roads out there, they're paid for by everybody. They're used by everybody in different forms of transportation, whether it be bikes or cars or motorcycles or agricultural vehicles or commercial vehicles and private vehicles and horses and pedestrians. So it's about respecting the other users, respecting the other. They're all members of our community. It's a big task to make all the roads safer, and I know that they constantly do. And then, we constantly get grants for improving road safety within the city. But country roads are, that's a challenge.
Sadly, it wasn't the only cycling death in BC over the last week. One of 2 cyclists struck by a vehicle in Prince George died from his injuries. Shane Kelly and another rider were training for an upcoming cancer fundraising ride when they were hit by the car in the city. Both incidents are currently under investigation. We want to hear from you generally in BC. What are your thoughts on cycling safety and what's needed to improve it in BC? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. Love to hear your thoughts on cycling infrastructure as well. Joining us now is Colleen Sparks, the Executive Director for Capital Bike in Victoria. Colleen, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me this afternoon.
It's these are tragedies over the last week. What went through your mind hearing about them?
Well, I mean, it is tragic, and it is so, preventable. Just because I think we just all need to be more aware that roads are for everyone. And when people are cycling, when there's events, I think cars need to take extra precaution. People need to do everything they can do to protect themselves. But in the end, cyclists are way more vulnerable than cars. And so, car drivers need to be extra careful.
As I mentioned, these incidents themselves are under investigation, but when it comes to cycling in different parts of the province, the mayor of Penticton mentioned, country roads and the challenges of that when it comes to infrastructure. What can be done when it comes to infrastructure when you get to more rural areas of the province?
I think that in rural areas of province, it is a lot harder. Obviously, it's more expensive. The roads are longer. You're going over bigger distances, and often you have poor shoulders and or no shoulder at all, rock faces and things like that. So, I mean, what cyclists have to do in cases like that is they just have to make sure that they're visible. I'm not familiar with what happened with this event, obviously,
Sure,
but
yeah.
riding single file, riding in smaller groups so that if you are backing up cars behind you, that they can pass you safely, and just being really careful about what you're doing when you're on those rural roads. I cycle in rural roads quite a bit here in Victoria, in the capital region, and I tend to try to go early in the morning, just to avoid lots of cars. But I mean, sometimes you can't, and you have to be out there with the cars. So being visible, being safe, and courteous, I think is what you can do.
Colleen Sparks is with me with Capital Bike in Victoria, as she mentioned, and we're taking your calls, asking you what are your thoughts on cycling safety in your part of the province and what's needed to improve it. Our numbers are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone or email us at bctoday@cbc.ca, or you can comment on our TikTok live as well. Again, taking your calls on cycling safety. Basil is calling us from Port Coquitlam. Hi, Basil. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you, Michelle, and hi to your guest, Colleen. I hope she enjoys being on CBC, and it's nice to have her expertise on this.
Yeah. What's your experience?
Well, recently, I don't know if you know, I'm maybe sure you do, or someone does there, Translate put out a Metro Vancouver cycling map, and the 8th edition. And they put in there is 12 rules of safety first are listed. But I believe they missed out one really important rule that is apart from having a bell, and that is so for all those, basically not just cyclists, but for all those on self-propelled vehicles. And that is to indicate to those ahead of you, whether it's cyclists and more importantly pedestrians, which side you hope to pass on. A bell it indicates you're there, but they don't know which side. And if you should be passing on the left, like any of our rules on the road, but if tourists or whatever from other countries where they drive on the right don't know that, and they just say, ring a bell, and the pedestrian moves to the right, and you're passing to the right.
Right.
Major collision there, and a lot of damage to everyone. And so really it's so important to say, on your left, it's so easy, and loud and clear, or on your right, and then the person knows where, or at least hopefully know which is left and right. And then at least then that can avoid a lot of collisions out there.
Yeah.
And that's for all those on self-propelled vehicles, bicycles or whatever, and they come by pretty fast. Some of those young kids on those, whatever they call them, platform with 4 wheels.
Right. There are, and you're right. There are more of those scooters, motorized scooters and things like that, just making things all the more busy on the roads as well, Basil. As you raise a good point there about communication. Thank you so much for your call in Port Coquitlam. So what should people do when it comes to, what do you make of his advice there, first of all, when it comes to vocalizing, saying, I on your left or on your right, and making that clear? Do you think that's something that should be included in any kind of information for cyclists?
Yeah, it is something that we try to ask our cyclists to do, and we try to sort of publicize that. It's tricky here because it's not, so speaking from Vancouver Island, it's not super common here yet. I was from Alberta before this and in Calgary, and it was very common there. And so here we're still at that place where we're trying to teach both the cyclists to do it, but also the pedestrians when you're on like a multi-use path, to know what to do when someone rings their bell and says passing on your left or on your left.
Right.
Because a lot of times when you ring your bell, people get startled and they will they'll look back, and sometimes they might think that you're ringing the bell to say, get out of my way, versus trying to be courteous and saying, I'm just letting you know I'm passing. So there's a bit of education that needs to happen, but absolutely saying you're passing on the left, because your caller is right, is sometimes people from other cultures will sort of be walking on the wrong side of the path. And so it sometimes makes sense to go to the right of them versus the left. Yeah.
And what do you make of his comment there? From your perspective in Victoria, are you noticing that things are just getting busier again with, self-operated motorized scooters and all other kinds of, I guess, modes of transportation that are coming up now and seem to be making things busier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are seeing an explosion. I think it's somewhat tied to COVID and maybe a bit before that of motorized vehicles and e-bikes and cargo bikes, which is fantastic because that opens up cycling to a whole group of people that it wasn't open to. I was from Calgary and I couldn't have ridden with my kids to school, but you see families doing it now, with what they call the West Coast minivan with 2 kids in the back and the dog in the front kind of thing. And definitely you're seeing the trails are busier. And so it does take some training for people, and just like when you're driving, you need to recognize it's going to take me an extra 30 seconds, but I'm going to do this safely. That's important. So making sure that you are letting people know you're passing, you're not just kind of sneaking in between, that you're not forcing people that are coming towards you to veer off the path. I think it's just about courtesy. And, I don't know exactly the stats, but it's probably just like driving. There's a percentage of people who are going to be operating less safely, but most people are trying to do their very best to operate their e-bike in a safe way.
We have an email. You talk about driving. Cody writes us, and they write, as we see growth in a lot of our communities, not just in the Fraser Valley, but all across BC, one of the main issues we're starting to deal with is the increase in density on our roadways. Many people think expansions and improvements to our roads for automotive traffic will be the solution. However, the solution is not to be able to allow this on the road, but to take cars off the road. In North America, we have long maintained the notion that automotive transportation is not only the primary, but the only effective form of personal transportation that we have. However, we are now seeing the negative effects that increased automotive traffic causes, such as these incidents. In order for us to effectively reduce the amount of traffic accidents, specifically with pedestrians and cyclists, we need to ensure that they have an equitable space in our roads and throughways. And this does not just mean simply painting bike lanes on the sides and shoulders of roads. This means actually creating separate laneways for cyclists and pedestrians to use. Cody, thank you very much for that. I think that's something that we'll hear quite a bit from our callers and our upcoming guests on this as well. When it comes to infrastructure, is it simply lacking, Colleen?
Well, it is lacking. Different areas of the province are moving forward. So again, I'm very lucky to be on Vancouver Island, and our bicycle infrastructure has really grown a lot. I can now cycle from where I live all the way downtown, which is about 10 kilometers on protected bike lanes, which is an amazing change for me. It really is life-changing, and especially for younger people, less experienced, or if you want to allow your children or your teens or your youth to cycle, protected bike lanes they just open the doors to so many people. They'll feel comfortable cycling. I do think that we do need to recognize that, not everybody can or should be driving. And so making it safe for people to choose to cycle is really about equity. For a lot of people with housing density, there's also costs. And so not having to have a second car or a car at all is a huge advantage. And so again, if you put in safe infrastructure, then people are, more likely to cycle. I think you also have to think about the speed. So it's not just the infrastructure, but it's also, traffic calming that cities are putting in place and speed limits. Like a person who's hit by a car at 30 kilometers an hour has like a 10% chance of having a fatal injury. At 50 kilometers an hour, it's around 85%. Yeah. So really, a small change in speed, huge change in the possibility that someone's not going to have a fatal injury. So I think it's about infrastructure, it's about traffic calming, it's about behavior, and it's about people understanding roads are for everyone. We have been so car dominated for so long, but a lot of people are saying, that's not the lifestyle I want. I don't want to be stuck in traffic. I want to be out getting exercise. There's so many benefits to cycling. And so it really is about culture change and helping people see the differences. And Cody's also right. You just build more lanes. All you do is you make it more desirable to drive. And then the roads will quickly clog up again. Whereas if you put in bike lanes, you're actually going to take cars off the road, and you're going to see the people who have to drive will be able to drive more quickly. And then the people who are able to cycle, and not everybody can cycle, but the people who are able to can cycle. And e-bikes, like I said, they're just really changing the world and making it so much more possible for so many people to use an e-bike and not have to have a car at all.
Colleen Sparks is with me, Executive Director for Capital Bike in Victoria. She's going to stick around as we continue our discussion on cycling safety in BC. More of your calls and emails and comments on TikTok coming up. As well, in about 15 minutes, we'll talk about summer and skin conditions and how they can be exacerbated and what you can do to protect yourself. That's coming up after the CBC News Update. And here's Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. The RCMP in Prince George say a man is dead after reports he was assaulted with a baseball bat. Police responded early Friday, but neither the suspect nor the victim were found. Investigators believe the man may have been assaulted again and was found collapsed 2 hours later in the same area. The Federal Court of Appeal has reserved a decision on whether the cull of hundreds of ostriches will go ahead. The owners of the BC farm have been fighting the cull since the Canadian Food Inspection Agency made the decision when avian flu was discovered on the farm back in December. The court will issue a decision at a later date. And the BC Conservation Officers Service says it's investigating a report that a grizzly bear on Texada Island has been shot and possibly wounded. The bear has been the focus of a lot of public attention after it began stalking people, harassing livestock and damaging property. Last month, the service said it would not try to move the bear after the animal returned to the community following 2 relocation attempts. And now the forecast on the north coast, mainly sunny this afternoon with a high of 17, highs around 25 with increasing cloudiness in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, sunny with a high of 25 as well. A mix of sun and cloud in the Kootenays with highs from 19 to 27. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, lots of sunshine with a high of 28. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria and the Fraser Valley, sunny this afternoon with highs up to 32 inland. That's your CBC News Update from Vancouver.
Thank you so much, Rob. That is Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. And thanks so much for joining us. This is BC Today here on CBC. It is a warm day. Today is one of the hottest. It's the hottest this week, in fact. So we want to hear from you in about 10 minutes from now. We'll talk about summer skin safety. Right now, though, we are talking about cycling safety. After 2 tragic deaths, 2 cyclists were killed, several injured in separate incidents on BC roads in the past week. One occurred at the Okanagan Grand Fondo event near Penticton on Sunday. It claimed the life of 1 cyclist and severely injured 2 others after they were hit by a car. In a moment, we're going to hear from Chef Ned Bell, who lives in the Okanagan and is an avid cyclist as well. We'll hear from him in just a moment. But we're asking you on the open line, what are your thoughts on cycling safety in BC and what's needed to improve it? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. On TikTok, live box break posted, what about scooter safety in Vancouver? Yeah, that's something that we've been talking about as we see more of these on the roads. Thanks very much for that. The classy gentleman writes, traffic enforcement in this province is next to non-existent. There is dangerous driving everywhere. And Baby Girl writes, the traffic in Kelowna is horrendous. This includes e-bikes. And Baby Girl writes, people riding e-bikes don't follow the rules of the road. Well, thank you for your thoughts on TikTok. And thanks for joining us there. Let's go back to our callers now. Brent is on the line at Quadra Island. Hi, Brent.
Hello.
Thanks so much for joining us.
I suspect that the vast majority of cyclists killed by cars are hit from behind, running with their back to traffic, where they can't see textures drifting into the bike lane. If you're facing traffic and see them coming, you can take the ditch. I've never seen anyone on a bike texting, and you got plenty of advance warning. Now people have said, "Oh, you have greater chance of getting killed because you're going faster." How does that weigh against the chances of avoiding a collision by taking the ditch early?
Are there other jurisdictions where it's more the norm to be facing traffic?
Generally, it's not charged, it's not enforced, but there's a law, provincial law, against the riding facing traffic. You got to ride with your back to traffic where you can't see them coming. And every time I hear cyclist hit by a car, I wonder, was he back to the traffic? It's a big issue. I told the transport minister, take a trip to Holland, study their laws. They're way ahead of ours. So you can ride facing traffic, back to traffic, or right down the middle. And forcing children off of sidewalks and into cars is criminal child endangerment. The chances of someone being killed by a cyclist is tiny compared to the chance of that cyclist being killed by the car. If we're here to save lives, the proper place for a bike is on a sidewalk. All you need is a law that says cyclists, counting pedestrians, must yield the right of way by leaving the sidewalk or walking the bike past them. Simple.
So you think that rule needs to be changed then?
All those rules need to be changed by going to Holland, go to Europe, and see what they've been doing. They're way ahead of us.
Okay.
Instead of staying stuck in the inertia of the past.
Interesting inertia of the past. Brent, thank you very much. Interesting points there, Brent from Quadra Island. Let's go to Colleen Sparks, who is joining us from Capital Bikes in Victoria. What do you think of that? So first of all, these rules around where cyclists can go, this has been ongoing debate in terms of cyclists on sidewalks and as well where cyclists can be facing during travel. What are your thoughts on changing those regulations, Colleen?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, you caught me out in that I don't know the stats on highway accidents, but I do know in an urban setting that typically accidents happen from cars turning right or left in front of the cyclist, not behind. So it's people pulling up driveways, turning left at intersections, or doing what they call a right hook, where they're turning right when a cyclist is going straight through, or even turning right, but they're just not paying attention. They're just not seeing them there. So, I remember taking training a long time ago, and I was told, don't worry about the cars behind you. They can see you. It's the cars coming towards you, coming onto the road in front of you that probably can't see you. So, but I can't say about on the highway.
Sure.
As far as sidewalks, I mean, children do ride on the sidewalks, I think up till the age 12. And I think that it is already the rule to give way to pedestrians. So probably just like any other thing that I talked about before, there's going to be a lot of people who do, and then some people who don't, but most people will give way. Sometimes I will cycle on the sidewalk if it's a road that I need to go on, but I don't feel safe, and I just stop and walk around people who are there, or I get off my bike or whatever I have to do. So, I mean, it's definitely an option. But I mean, really, we want to...
Sorry, can I just clarify on that? I'm just looking at the province. I just want to make sure, is there not a rule against cycling on sidewalks? It says here, just a quick look on the website, you must not cycle on sidewalks unless a sign or other traffic control device permits it.
I believe children are allowed to cycle, like young children.
Okay, you're talking about children. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, so I just outed myself. Sometimes I will cycle on a sidewalk if I don't feel safe on the road. If there is no curb and the traffic is really busy, but I'll cycle really slowly and I will give way for pedestrians. So I'm basically practically walking my bike. But I do think that, what we want to do is we want to make safe, connected cycling infrastructure that's actually on the roads, because it's not really fair to say all cyclists should go on the sidewalk and have to constantly stop and start. If you were a car and you had to constantly stop and start, it would become impractical. It's impractical to ask cyclists to cycle on the sidewalks all the time. It would just be too slow. The surface is uneven. You'd have to constantly stop, go around foam poles and garbage cans and things like that. So you really want connected bicycle infrastructure, and bicycle infrastructure is so much less expensive than a kilometer of road infrastructure, and it just allows so many people to feel safe and confident, so that they will cycle. So rather than putting cyclists onto the sidewalk, I'd say build the cycling infrastructure. That's the equitable thing to do.
Colleen Sparks is my guest, Executive Director for Capital Bike in Victoria. We're unable to connect with Chef Ned Bell, unfortunately, but my thanks to him for taking the time. Let's take a couple more calls before we wrap up on this. Yannick on the line in Langford. Hi, Yannick.
Hi, Michelle. Good afternoon.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on cycling safety?
Thank you. June 19th, I was using my bicycle, my road bike, to go to the rec center to do a workout. It was 5:30 in the morning, and I was actually going in the same way as the traffic. I was in a cycling lane. I was coming down Well Road, which is a downslope hill, and two vehicles raced by my side to cut in to go to the Peninsula Gas Co-op's gas station. And in less than 2 seconds after the vehicle cut me off, I made impact with that vehicle. And I was traveling at a great speed. I was traveling at 54 kilometers an hour because I was coming down a hill. And even though it's day, I still travel with my lights on. I have a flashing white in the front, flashing red in the back, and I even have a gyro-actuated red light. So when I apply the brakes, people behind me can actually see that I'm applying brakes. When that vehicle cut me off, I ream into the side of it, ricochet off the back of it, skip the sidewalk altogether because I was in a cycling lane, if I failed to mention that, and landed into the co-op's parking station.
Oh my goodness.
And the person came out just to make sure that I was still alive, not severely injured, and then went back into the vehicle and took off. The other vehicle that was following the first vehicle so closely never signaled. And it was so close to the first vehicle that I never saw any turning signals. But to add insult to injury, when the RCMP came over to take the event in notes, he was to charge me. He says, "You're lucky that I'm not charging you for what you've done." I said, "What did I do?" He says, "You failed to yield to a vehicle turning. You were the vehicle that was behind." And when he gave me this call, by the way, I was in hospital on the bed because I was getting checked out post-accident. And I couldn't believe what he was saying because these two people, after the fact that I was going 54 kilometers, had to at least go 60, speeding. And he saw the footage, this police officer, by the way. And I asked him, how long did it take from when he turned right for me to make impact? He said, less than 2 seconds.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to yield to a vehicle when I have less than 2 seconds of reaction time when these two vehicles never signaled intent of turning? How am I supposed to be yielding to those vehicles?
I can imagine that must have, I mean, of course, not sat well with you when you heard that, and simply frustrating. Yannick, how are you doing? This is just June 19th.
Well, you wouldn't believe it, but the only reaction time that I had was to scream, like a scream that I never let out of my voice before, because obviously I was terrified. And then I held on for dear life, and I rolled myself into a ball. So basically, I was a 188-pound wrecking ball hitting that vehicle. And all I have is spraying muscles in my forearms from holding on for dear life on my handlebars. But not a scratch, not a bump, nothing, not even a bruise. The only thing I have on my bike is a scratch on the release lever on the rear wheel. And
that's remarkable.
The only reason it's insane. Like people are like, there's no way that this happened. And I can show on my Strava because I record my rides for data gathering. Mm-hmm. And so you can see me going 62 down the hill, 54 before I hit the vehicle, and then it goes right down to 0.
So, Yannick,
when I hit the car.
Given that you were going down a hill, hence your speed, what do you see is needed then? Like coming out of this horrible situation, thank goodness you're okay. What do you see is needed to improve cycling safety?
It's more awareness all around. Like cyclists have so many tools to make themselves seen, bright clothing, flashing lights. So we can only do so much. The fact that the drivers raced beside me going over 60 should have been an indicator that I was going at a good speed. I have no way of telling my speed, by the way. I have nothing on my bicycles. Bicycles do not come with speedometers. Mm-hmm. But, I can feel the air, going through me. And I know I'm clipping really well, but these people, since they have to race beside me, they should have known. It's like, this guy is cruising. I'm going to slow down, stop. And then 2 seconds, 2 seconds, I would have been by them. That's the timing, 2 seconds.
Yannick.
And so for making things more improved, I don't know what else to do. There's a cycling lane, I was in it. We know the rules. If I drive a car, I'm a driver. I'm 53 years old. I've been driving for a very long time. When I go to Wadafuka in my car, I see so many cyclists on their way to work. What do? If I pass one, not racing, simply going my speed, pass one, first thing I'm going to do before I take my right-hand turn is look into my right-hand mirror and see where that cyclist is.
Yeah.
And if I see him in my mirror, that means he's too close for me to turn.
Yannick.
But if I see him in my rearview mirror, then I know it's safe.
More, as you say, more awareness. You know, you had the bike lane there, you were in it, but it's this more awareness around you. That's, you know, kind of what I take. And I really appreciate your calling and sharing your story. I hope that your recovery continues. Good to know that really you have just these muscle strains after that. What a traumatic incident for you. Yannick, thank you so much for your call. Really appreciate it. You've really gotten to the issue. Thank you so much. And Colleen Sparks, I'll leave it there, but I thank you for giving us the context around this as well. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Colleen Sparks is with Capital Bike, and she's the executive director. 12:48 now. This is CBC Radio 1. I'm Michelle Elliott. Here's what's coming up for listeners in Metro Vancouver and on the coast.
Michelle, hi there. It's Gloria Makarenko here. And I would love it if you could join us for On the Coast later this afternoon. You know, we've been talking a lot about climate change on the show. So today, we're going to hear about advancements in the wind and solar energy market, particularly in Alberta. We're also going to hear from Vancouverite Mark Angelo about his new book, River Magic, Tales from a Life on 1,000 Rivers. And yes, he has traveled those 1,000 rivers, and believe me, he has got some adventures to share. Also, with Justin McElroy launching his bracket looking for the best symbol in BC. Today, you're going to have to pick between two Okanagan heavyweights, cherries versus peaches. We're going to launch that debate. So I hope you can join us this afternoon between 3 and 6 for On the Coast.
Gloria, thank you very much. That's Gloria Makarenko with On the Coast, starting at 3 o'clock on CBC Radio 1. Lots of comments coming in on cycling safety. On TikTok, Trudy writes, as a driver, I love bike lanes. It keeps us all safer. And another comment here from 555 Faring Lau. If we're going to be a leading city, i.e. Vancouver, the bike lane system needs to be updated big time. And some emails now as well. Mary writes, I love how many people are biking these days. I'm disappointed to see so many who don't follow rules of the road. That's from Mary. And Tim writes in North Vancouver about cycling in Spain and was amazed by the differences between motorists in Spain and BC, i.e. Spanish drivers respect cyclists and patiently wait to pass safely. Thank you for all of your comments on TikTok Live and BC Today at cbc.ca. Today is certainly a hot day. If you've been outside or read the weather report and the weather forecast, it is certainly summer beating down on us. Well, we're going to talk about how it can worsen chronic skin concerns or bring about new skin concerns. Dr. Harvey Lui is head of the Department of Dermatology and Skin Science at the University of BC, and he joins me now. If you have any questions as well about summer skincare, you can call us 1-800-825-5950-604-669-3733. You can email bctoday at cbc.ca or post them on our TikTok Live. Dr. Lui, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
How's the heat out there?
It's getting hot.
Yes, it sure is. Now, I want to get to the chronic skin conditions, but I always think when on a day like this, sunscreen. Can you just tell us how important it is to think about sunscreen on a day like today?
Well, sunscreen is really important, right? But it's not the only thing. So the key things to remember are 3 simple messages. Number 1, seek the shade and change the times when you're going to be out in the direct sunlight. So avoid being in the direct sunlight between 11 and 3. If you have to be out there, schedule your activities to be in the shade rather than in the direct sun. Number 2, cover up, right? wear a hat, a broad brim hat, cover up with clothes, because that's a really, really effective way of protecting your skin. Number 3, if you have to be out there in the direct sun, that's where your sunscreens come in.
Aha. Okay, so avoid being in the sun in the first place.
Well, be careful about being in the sun, because we know that being in the sun is actually good for you. Being outdoors is healthy. Being outdoors makes you feel good. There are studies that show that being outdoors lowers your blood pressure. So we're not, as dermatologists, telling people to go live in caves, right? We're just saying, if you're going to be out there, do it carefully.
Go hide in the basement. No,
definitely not.
And I love that you put it that way, because online there's so much chatter about sun and sunscreen and misinformation. And so you're saying it's all about, yes, enjoy the sun. It is good for you, but just be able to protect yourself and be careful.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really balanced message. And now, what about though beyond the sun damage and concerns from sun from sun exposure? What are the other conditions that can be exacerbated?
Sure.
In the sun?
So the thing that everyone can experience and is universal is if you're out in the sun too long, you might get a sunburn. Super uncomfortable. It'll wreck the rest of the day, the next day, and not so fun. So avoid getting sunburns. But long term, if you're out in the sun over and over and over again after many years, that's the setup for possibly getting skin cancer. But it doesn't happen overnight like a sunburn. It happens decades later. And skin cancer can be fatal. The other thing is, if you're not worried about burning, and you're not worried about skin cancer, and you should be, but if you're not worried about those two things, you are definitely going to be worried about looking old, because the number one reason why people look old is because of excess sun exposure.
Okay, so if you've gone beyond those two, which you should be concerned about, there's another one. Aaron is lovely, writes, sun smart and seek shade where possible. Jason writes, my daughter has dry patches on her cheeks. She uses sunscreen when out in the sun.
That's a good strategy, right? So those are the things that apply to everyone. And there are also some people who really, really struggle with the outdoor sun. So, for example, there are actually people who can be allergic to the sun. Sounds kind of weird, but it can happen. So up to 10% of the population can actually get an allergic rash when they're outdoors. So these people need to be really careful. There are other patients who have loss of pigment in their skin. So there's a condition called vitiligo. Michael Jackson probably had vitiligo. So this is when you lose the pigmentation on your skin. So there's an autoimmune reaction that destroys your pigment-producing cells. You get these white spots. When you lose the pigment on your skin, you've lost one of your natural protecting barriers to the sun. So people with vitiligo need to be super careful, because they will burn even more easily than the average person does.
Okay, I imagine that takes a toll.
It does. I mean, in addition to having, these white disfiguring spots on your skin, which, are very noticeable and very distressing to people, they have the added problem of, needing to be careful out in the sun, because who wants to have a sunburn, right? And if you're more prone to having a sunburn, then it's not so fun, right?
Now, what about conditions like, this is something that affects my family, eczema, psoriasis, things like that?
Well, that's the interesting thing. You see, the sun has got good and it's got bad. It's like in Asian philosophy, we talk about the yin and the yang, right? So there are some diseases like, allergy to the sun or vitiligo, where the sun is difficult for your skin, right? It causes problems. There are other conditions, though, like eczema and psoriasis, where the sun can actually make your skin better. Sounds kind of weird, but again, the sun can actually have an effect on calming down an overactive immune system. And that's what's happening in your skin when you get psoriasis or eczema.
Okay.
So a lot of my patients with psoriasis or eczema, they will know that during the summer months, their skin tends to improve. The only problem is they've got visible spots in their skin, so they're a little bit more nervous about, exposing their skin during the nice hot weather.
It's fine if you're going to benefit from it. Someone is just posting retinol in cosmetics. They make you burn. What about that? Yeah,
that can happen, right? So retinol is a form of, it's a derivative of vitamin A, which is a naturally occurring vitamin. So when you take the vitamin A molecule, you split it in half, you get this molecule called retinol. Retinol can actually make you more sensitive to the sun. So if you are using that type of product, generally we tell people, use it at bedtime. Don't put it on during the day, because the sun will actually damage the retinol molecule, and it makes your skin more prone to burning. So if you're going to use that type of product, do it in the evening.
Okay, keep to the evening. I have about 30 seconds left here, but what's your main message as people try to be careful in the sun?
I think the main message is to think about how you're going to plan your activities that day. Be careful, be safe. Burning can happen on a day like today. Even within 10 to 15 minutes of being outdoors, you could have a nasty sunburn if you are not careful. So watch that UV index, be careful, protect yourself.
This is so useful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Dr. Harvey Lui is head of the Department of Dermatology and Skin Science at UBC. Very important advice, and do be careful out there today. That's all for our show. Thanks so much for joining us here on BC Today.